He kissed me last night.
He kissed me last night. Rosa said it fast. Like, if she didn't say it fast, she would swallow it back down and never say it at all. The room went dead quiet. Vivian Harrington did not scream, did not drop her wine glass, did not even flinch. She turned around slowly, and that was so much worse. Rosa had prepared for fire. She had rehearsed this 100 times in her small bedroom at the end of the east wing. She had practiced her words, her breathing, how to hold her hands so they wouldn't shake. But nothing had prepared her for this. The way Vivian looked at her, like she was already a problem that had been solved. "Which corridor?" Vivian asked. Rosa blinked. "Ma'am? Which corridor? Not louder. Lower. The way a room gets quiet right before something shatters. Where did he kiss you?" "The east corridor. Near the library. I was carrying linens and he pulled me aside and..." "What time?" 11. "At night..." Vivian turned back to the window. She picked up her wineglass and took one slow sip and stared down at the garden below, where the groundskeepers were working in the early morning cold, completely unaware that somewhere above them, a marriage was either ending or becoming a weapon. Rosa stood frozen, not invited further in, not told to leave, trapped in that terrible space between. "Close the door," Vivian said finally, "and sit down." Rosa obeyed both. When Vivian turned around and walked across the room and sat directly across from her, crossed her legs, held her wine at an angle, looked at her the way a chess player looks at a board, Rosa felt her stomach drop straight through the floor. "Why are you telling me this?" Vivian asked. "Because it's the right thing. Because you deserve to know. Because I respect you and I would never..." "Stop." Vivian tilted her head slightly. "Try again, and this time tell me the truth." Rosa went very still. The silence pulled tight, like a wire about to snap. Those soft brown eyes, gentle, trembling, flickered, just for a second. So brief that anyone else would have missed it entirely. Vivian did not miss it. "I don't know what you mean," Rosa said quietly. "Yes, you do." Vivian leaned forward, elbows on knees, wineglass dangling from 2 fingers. A girl who comes to the wife out of respect doesn't rehearse her hands before she knocks. A girl who is genuinely scared doesn't choose 7 in the morning, the exact time she knows Elliot is in his briefing, and I'm alone. A girl who just wants to do the right thing doesn't pause before she speaks like she's selecting which knife to use. Rosa said nothing. "So I'll ask one more time," Vivian said. "Why are you here?" The silence was enormous. Then Rosa dropped her eyes to the floor. And when she looked back up, something in her face had shifted. Quiet, barely visible, like a curtain moving in a sealed room. The trembling was still there, but behind it something else. "Something sharp. I need protection," Rosa whispered, "from what he'll do when he finds out I rejected him." Vivian studied her for a long moment. Then she looked at the ceiling, and something crossed her face. Not sympathy, but recognition. The tired, specific recognition of a woman who understood exactly what it meant to be cornered by Elliot Harrington with nowhere to go. $500,000, Vivian said. "Transferred the moment I have what I need." Rosa didn't gasp, didn't look shocked. She held Vivian's gaze and said, very calmly, "What exactly do you need?" And Vivian smiled, slow, cold, not a warm smile, not even close. These 2 women just made a deal, but can either of them actually trust the other? "Now, I want you to subscribe right now, because everything you think you know is about to fall apart." Elliot Harrington walked into the dining room at 8 a.m. exactly. 6'2", silver at the temples, charcoal suit. He moved through a room the way gravity moves, not asking anything to clear the way, just pulling everything toward him. His pa spoke rapidly 3 steps behind him. Staff straightened as he passed. He didn't look at a single one of them. He sat at the head of the long table, picked up his phone, reached for his coffee without looking up. Vivian walked in 4 minutes later. She sat at the opposite end, 17 feet of mahogany between them. A staff member poured her coffee. She thanked him. Elliot kept scrolling. "This was marriage in the Harrington house. You were in the east corridor last night," Vivian said. "I'm in many places. Near the library. Around 11. He turned a page on his screen. "Is there a question in there, or are you just narrating my evening back to me?" "I'm giving you a chance," she said pleasantly, "to tell me something before I find out another way." He looked up then. Slow, deliberate, the look of a man who had stopped pretending he wasn't already paying attention. His eyes, dark grey, cold as deep water, settled on her face. "Rosa came to see me this morning," Vivian said. "Not a flicker, not a twitch." "Did she?" he said. Flat, bored. "She did." He set his phone face down, picked up his coffee, took one slow sip, looked at his wife the way men like him always looked at problems, with mild, almost bored certainty, that he had already decided how this ends. "Whatever she told you," he said, "consider the source." "I always do," Vivian said. "I'm considering yours as well." The air sharpened. Elliot's jaw shifted. "She's a maid, Vivian." So was the last one. The silence that followed had weight. History. The kind of quiet that only exists between two people who have survived the same storm from opposite sides. Elliot looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone. "Handle it," he said. "That's what you do." Vivian looked at him across 17 feet of polished wood and said absolutely nothing. Because she already was. 3 weeks. Rosa was extraordinary. She laughed at the right moments, lingered 2 seconds too long when Elliot spoke to her, dropped her eyes in that particular way, not quite shy, not quite willing, that men like Elliot Harrington had been misreading as invitation their entire lives. He noticed. Of course he did. Thursday evening, Vivian at a charity dinner across the city, or so Elliot believed, Rosa restocking the library's shelves when he appeared in the doorway, tie loose, whiskey in hand. "Still here?" "Just finishing up," Rosa said softly. He walked in, poured a second glass, held it toward her. "Sit with me, not a request." Rosa sat, and in the hidden pocket of her uniform's inner lining, the recording device Vivian had given her blinked its tiny red light and captured every single word. What Elliot said over the next 40 minutes was not just damaging. It was devastating. He spoke like a man who had never once believed consequences applied to him. He talked about the women before Rosa, the arrangements, the payments, what he expected, and what happened to those who refused. Then he talked about Vivian. "She knows," Elliot said, swirling his glass. "She's always known. That's the deal. She keeps the lifestyle. I keep my freedom. Neither of us pretends otherwise." Rosa kept her face perfectly still. "That sounds lonely." Elliot looked at her. "It's practical. Vivian has her charities, her accounts, her little sense of power." He smiled. "Dead eyes. We are a perfect arrangement." Rosa nodded. Said nothing, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. 3 days ago, delivering documents to his private office, she had seen something she was never meant to see. An account, a file, with her real name on it, not Rosa Medina, her real name. He knows who she really is. Drop A in the comments and subscribe right now, because Rosa didn't come here for the money. She didn't come here for Vivian's revenge. She came here for something else entirely. And it changes everything. Her real name was Rosalind Carver. 18 months ago, her older sister Diana had worked in this house. Diana Carver, 2006. Quiet, hard-working, grateful for the job that paid her rent and sent money home to their mother. 11 months in the Harrington mansion. Then she disappeared. Not fired. Not relocated. Gone. The official story: she resigned suddenly and moved abroad. There was even a letter, signed, dated, neat. Vivian had shown it to the police when Rosa's mother reported Diana missing. Case closed, but Diana had never owned a passport. And Rosa knew her sister's handwriting. That letter was not written by Diana, so Rosa had done what no one expected a grieving younger sister to do. She waited. She saved money. She changed her appearance, built a new name, learned everything about this household, and applied for a job. Not for $500,000. Not for Vivian's marriage. For Diana. The recording in her pocket was never going to Vivian. It was going to the detective Rosa had been paying for 7 months. The one who had already found 3 other women, all former Harrington staff, all with the same story, all with the same clean resignation letters, all who had rejected Elliot and then simply ceased to exist. That night, Rosa sat across from Vivian and placed the recording device on the table. Vivian reached for it. Rosa's hand came down over hers. Vivian looked up sharply. "Before you take that," Rosa said, and her voice was different now. Steady, clear, every trace of trembling completely gone. "I need to show you something." She reached into her pocket and placed a photograph on the table between them. A young woman, brown eyes, warm smile, standing in this very house. Vivian looked at the photograph, then at Rosa, and for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, Vivian Harrington had no words. "Her name was Diana," Rosa said quietly. "She was my sister, and your husband made her disappear. The arrest happened on a Saturday morning. Elliot was at breakfast, scrolling his phone, coffee at his right hand. Pa 3 steps behind. Everything exactly as it always was, until it wasn't. He heard the cars first, then voices at the front entrance. Then his head of security appeared in the dining room doorway, and the expression on that man's face, a man Elliot had employed for 11 years, a man he had never once seen rattled, was pure fear. Elliot stood slowly. He looked down the length of the dining table, 17 feet of polished mahogany, and Vivian was sitting at the other end, both hands around her coffee cup, watching him. She had known they were coming. "Vivian." His voice dropped to almost nothing. "What did you do?" She looked at him across the long table. Cold, bitter 16 years of storing everything away, and said clearly, without a single tremor, "I handled it." The officers came through the door. Elliot looked at his wife one final time. And she did not look away. Not once. Not even when they put their hands on him. Not even when he said her name again. Differently this time. Not as a question, not as a threat, but as something that almost sounded like he finally understood what she was. She watched until he was gone. Then she picked up her coffee and finished it. They found Diana 11 days later. Alive. Hidden in a private medical facility 2 hours outside the city, admitted under a different name, kept quiet with money and paperwork, and all the invisible machinery Elliot Harrington had been running in the background of his life for problems exactly like her. She was alive. But she was not okay. Rosa was there when they brought her out. She stood at the entrance in the grey morning light, and she watched the doors open, and when Diana appeared, thinner, slower, older in her eyes than she had any right to be, Rosa walked to her and held her. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. Vivian sat alone in the mansion weeks later. Same window, same wine glass, same seat, but the house felt different now. Staff moved without tension. No one measured their footsteps. No one weighed their words before speaking. She had filed for divorce the morning of the arrest. She would keep the house, keep the accounts. Her lawyers were better than his. She had spent 15 years making sure of that. She had won. By every measure she had ever used, she had won. And yet she kept hearing his voice on that recording. She knows. That's the arrangement. She thought about 16 years of being cold and untouchable and powerful, and she wondered whether there was a version of winning that didn't sit in your chest like this. Heavy, hollow, quiet. She didn't have an answer. She finished her wine, stood up, turned off the light. Rosa never came back. She didn't take the money. She took her sister home and sat with her every day and learned, slowly, painfully, that saving someone and healing them are two completely different things. That the second one is harder, that it takes longer than anyone tells you, that some days Diana looked at her and smiled and it felt like everything, and some days she didn't, and those days were long. But Rosa stayed. That was the part that mattered. She stayed. The end. If this story hit you, like it right now, it genuinely helps more than you know. Comment below. Who was the real villain? Elliot or the system that protected him? And subscribe if you aren't already. New story every week. Same energy, same standard, greater than. See you in the next one.